The weekly Industry Angel podcast hears from business leaders and entrepreneurs who share their stories and that all-important light bulb moment. This can inspire us all and maybe scratch that itch and kickstart that idea that keeps you awake at night. Welcome to episode 49 of the Industry Angel, nearly at the big 5-0. Well, I hope you've had a fantastic week, and I've loved to read your emails recently. You've been implementing new techniques into the workplace. You've been using Slack. You've been using Trello. You've been talking culture. I promise I won't get on about red felt pool tables. And it's great. You've been inspired, and that's what it's all about. So thanks for it. It's my oxygen. I love to hear what you've been up to after listening to the show. So what's going on? Well, one to watch out for next week is Newcastle Startup Week. So if you're in the northeast of England, this is for you. It's basically a series of conferences, each in a different venue. Each day's got a different theme. So there's inspiration, getting started, funding and finance, growing and scaling, and keep going or pivot. And pivot's something we talk about regularly. So the city's going to go full on tech mad for 5 days. Each event's got a range of speakers, both local and from around the UK. And I notice Industry Angel guest Brad Burton's down to speak on the Monday, so that should be fun. So it starts Monday the 15th. You can head over to newcastlestartupweek.com for all the information. So I had an excellent week last week, very busy, and I actually met with today's sponsors, the Hope Street Exchange. It's a new hybrid workspace. It's right in the heart of Sunderland City Centre. It mixes new design with refurbishment of an existing Grade 2 listed building. It's pretty cool. It's got 30 offices, 7 workshops, a cafe, super fast broadband, and the state-of-the-art AV in the communal meeting and event spaces. You've got to see it. It's amazing. So I'll put some links in the show notes. If you want to become a tenant, it's definitely worth a look, and the team will gladly show you around. I had a fantastic tour. Right, my friends, let's get on to today's guest. Today we have business transformation professional Steve Shoulder. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Thanks, Ian, and good day to you.
What a title. I am super jealous. Business transformation professional. Do you get a cape with that?
Yeah, I get to wear my underpants on the outside of my trousers every day. It's a great job.
Fantastic stuff. And a utility belt. I love it. So listen, you're a fellow Northeasterner as well?
Yes, for my sins. I'm from Hartlepool. Wasn't born and bred in Hartlepool. I was actually born in Bishop Auckland, but lived in Hartlepool for the last 30 years or so.
Excellent stuff. Well, you're not too far from me then. So we'll try and tone down our Northeast banter.
No, let's do it the other way. Let's wind it up to get people confused.
I know. I deliberately talk slow sometimes on the show because half our listener base is in the US.
Right.
So, I try and tone it down. But let's go for it.
Yeah, let's go.
So, you've recently co-authored and launched your book, 90 Days to Profit, a proven system to transform your business. So, Steve, no pressure, but you should have plenty of golden nuggets to share with our listeners.
Well, I can tell you, Ian, that this book, it's my first book. I say it's my first, big tongue-in-cheek when I say it's my first. I think it's probably my only book because it took me a year to write, and I can tell you it was hard work. You're bearing in mind that all the time I was doing this, I'm working 60 and 70 hours a week with clients and writing this book at the same time. And it's a 260-page book, so it didn't take 5 minutes to get through. But I'm very, very pleased that it's done.
Oh yeah, I mean, how long has it been out now?
It's been out for 1 week only, and the sales have been fantastic.
When you say fantastic, come on, stop being humble, get it out.
If I tell you that we sold 11,500 on day one, and it's continued in similar vein, then that'll give you an idea of how well it's going.
All right, don't brag. What about, so can you buy it through Amazon or?
Yes, if you go, it's available on the Kindle store on Amazon, .co.uk or amazon.com.
Excellent. So how does it feel, having that up now on Amazon? Is it like, do you keep going to Amazon, see how many you've sold, how many reviews you've got?
I've tried to resist that really, but it's quite surreal. I mean, I look at that and think, crikey, I wrote that. I never ever thought that I would be a published author, but here we go. I am.
Good stuff. Well, 90 Days to Profit reveals, this is from Amazon, reveals the secret weapon for business success with a 7-step profit system. Now, I love secret weapons. So we know now you've got a cape, you wear your kegs on the outside of your pants, you've got secret weapons. So make this a secret no longer, Steve. I want to hear all about it. But why don't we wind back first? Let us hear about your background, how you became a business transformation professional.
No, that's absolutely fine. I've been doing this now, Ian, for 21 years. Started doing this in 1996. And I mean, at that particular time, I was at a bit of a crossroads in my life, really. The company I was working for was sold, and it was being transferred down to Northampton or somewhere down south, and I don't relate to that. I'm a northeastern boy, always have been, always will be. So I decided I was going to leave the business at that point and do something else. And I actually went and did the Cranfield Fellowship in Manufacturing Management, which is and still is a unique course. The thing I liked about that particular course is, I mean, it was all about modern manufacturing techniques, but it was also things like you had personal effectiveness in there and a bit of NLP, and it wasn't just manufacturing techniques. It was more than that. It was a proper rounded course, and it was a 13-week residential course at Cranfield University. And you didn't get your qualification, which is a silver medal. You didn't get that until you'd done an assignment in industry for 12 months, and you were actually assessed during the course of that assignment. And you had to prove that you could apply the theory in practice. And it wasn't until, and then at the end of that 12 months, you gave a final presentation to the board at Cranfield, and you got your qualification. And I've got the silver medal, so I'm very proud of that. But one of the things that they did as part of that process was I had to go and do that 12-month assignment in a company called ABB UTech. And at the time, ABB was UTech was the largest manufacturing consultancy in the world that nobody's heard of. It was 1,250 consultants at that time, which is a big manufacturing consultancy. And I went in there and I was doing predominantly what I would call now as classic interim assignments, going into businesses and getting them turned around or positioning for growth or whatever was required. And after I'd done that, I very quickly came to the conclusion that this was something that I could do myself, and went off pretty shortly after that to do it by myself. And I've been doing it ever since. So that was my impetus, if you like, to get me into this kind of a career, and I've been doing it ever since.
So you've got a business essentially, and you're an external consultant. Is that what it is?
I actually prefer to work as an interim rather than as a consultant. So and the difference, people may not understand the difference, but an interim actually goes into a business and takes on a managerial role. So I would typically go into a business as an operations director or an MD, and I would turn the business around or reposition it or whatever is required. A consultant typically would go in as an advisor. They wouldn't take a managerial role in the business. They'd go in as an advisor, and they quite often are not in there full time. They might be in there 2 or 3 days a week or whatever, and there's a specific number of days that they're going to give the business and so on. I prefer not to work in that way, but I have done it. I have done the consultancy thing, but I prefer to go in as an interim.
So you're operational. You're in there, one of the employees, and I'm guessing what we're looking at 3-6 months stint, or
over the years. I mean, in the 21 years I've been doing this, I've done 29 assignments. So the average is about 9 months. But quite often, the business results are already locked in at the 3-month stage, which is where the 90 days to profit comes from. But the business quite often, they like to have me stick around and do other things after I've done the initial piece of work.
So when are you brought in? Is it something that like investors or the banks sort of see that the finances dropping, the sales dropping off, and then they kind of think, right, we need to bring a troubleshooter in? Is that what normally happens? Or
Yeah, it can be any number of routes into the business. Ian, I've been brought in by banks. I've been brought in by shareholders, by chief executives, by owners and shareholders, etc. But typically, I would only be called in when the business has run out of options internally. If they've got people inside the business that can do this kind of work, then they would do it themselves. But when the business doesn't have that available to them, and they've run out of their own internal resources and their own skills, etc., that's when they call me.
it's funny you mentioned some like softer skills when you did your course. I think like NLP and I don't know, some sort of maybe personal sort of skills. I'm guessing you need them when you go into an organization, because you rock up, okay, with your underpants and your silver medal and your cape. People will be thinking, who's this guy rocking up here, troubleshooter? And then do you kind of get the backup sometime? Or?
Oh yeah. Yeah, quite a lot. I mean, it's inevitable that somebody turns up from outside. The people inside the business don't know anything about me, what I'm here to do, what I'm all about. So one of the tools, if you like, in my toolbox. Is the ability to build rapport and build connections with people very quickly. That's the NLP training. I've done a lot of that in the past, and that ability to make those connections very quickly comes in very handy.
So all those skills. What did he say? 29 assignments? Did he say, Steve?
Yes.
So I'm guessing, winding this, coming full circle back to your book, is this where, as you are going through these 29 assignments, do you think there's a book in here somewhere?
I had absolutely no intention at the early stage of doing this at all. But what I found is when I first started doing these assignments, I found I was doing them different ways each time. And I thought, because I'm a person that likes structure, that likes process, and I thought, look, there's got to be a better way to do this. And I just started to reflect on what works well, what works badly, and is there a step-by-step thing that I can construct here, to get me through a typical assignment. And I started to craft this, over the course of it probably took me about 18 months to get it fully sort of buttoned down. And I've been fine-tuning it ever since. But once I had that basic framework in place, it then made life a lot easier, because I knew what I was doing. Every time I went into a new assignment, I knew what step 1 was. I knew what step 2 was. I knew what step 3 was. And it just made life so much simpler and so much clearer. And also, once you give that level of confidence to your client, life is also a lot simpler.
Yeah, it sounds really good. I found this in my sort of coaching role, where you have a playbook of techniques and methodologies that you often use, because sometimes you would end up just going in and just chatting and then not really getting anywhere with any structure.
Yeah. Very, very typical. I know, excuse me, consultants that do this themselves. They fall into the trap of identifying 500 things that need to be fixed, and then start knocking them off the list. Yeah, which is good. I mean, they're doing something, but my experience is if you don't narrow your focus, really narrow your focus, then you're really not very effective. So I learned the hard way that you don't do that. You actually focus on the one thing that needs to be fixed, and you find one thing to fix it with, and that gives you fantastic results.
So that's a nice little segue. So we've mentioned this 7-step profit system. Do you think it's a good time to get into that? Yeah,
absolutely. I developed this process initially by trial and error, and just what works, what doesn't work. But I've now crafted it into a 7-step process, which I follow all the time now. And the process spells out the word profits. So the first step is P, and that P is for problems. And the problems element of this is you have to establish what problem it is that you're going to fix. It isn't 500 problems, it is one. And I had somebody ask me the other day, well, what if I can't find the one problem? My answer is very simple. You haven't looked hard enough. This isn't, it's not easy. It's a simple process. It's not easy. That's why lots of people can't do it. And that's why they're calling people like me. But you have to really be hard and really narrow the focus and think, what is it? What is it that this business really needs? And believe it or not, I've done 29 assignments. Yeah. Every single assignment that I've been taken into, all right, I end up fixing something different to what they brought me in for. Every single time.
Yeah.
I mean, a classic example of this, I don't want to drift into too many tangents, but I think this is a good one. I was brought into a cable manufacturing company in northern Spain, in Santander, beautiful part of the world. And I know quite a lot about cable industries and manufacturing plants. So I was brought in there because they were convinced that the factory was failing badly. These people are useless. They don't know what they're doing. They're missing targets daily. It is a complete nightmare. And so I thought, this sounds really bad. So I went in there. And sure enough, the factory looked a real mess. But the people were working exceptionally hard. I couldn't believe they were running around like crazy people. I said, no, these people are working hard. This isn't something to do with the factory. This is something to do with organization. So I then I spoke to the planners, and the planners were pulling their hair out every day. And it turns out that the salespeople, God bless them, I love salespeople, they had access to the production planning system. And what they were doing was they were dropping orders in from their favorite customers, and they were jumping the queue.
Right.
Yeah. And of course, if you bear in mind that every single order that goes into that queue, there are materials associated with that. There are skills and people associated with that. There are lots of organizational things that need to follow along. You can't just jump the queue, but that's exactly what they were doing. So we took away their access rights and said, go and talk to your customers, because they're not going to get, this 1 week lead time anymore. They're going to get, 5 and 6 weeks like everybody else. So get used to it. Go and manage your client. And we took that away. And in 3 weeks, that company was knocking out industry record numbers, because the factory wasn't actually the problem. It was the salespeople, bucking the system.
That's great. So how do you find that out, Steve? Do you literally walk through a full process of organization?
The first thing I do in every assignment, Ian, is I speak to lots of people. It doesn't matter who you speak to in business. They've got a view on what the problem is, whether it be a chief executive, whether it be a finance guy, whether it be a planner, whether it be a guy on the shop floor. They will all have a view on what's happening. And I might add, they're all coming at it from different angles and different perspectives, and so their view will be different. Yeah. And when you start to do this, themes start to emerge very quickly. And by the way, if you think about this in a normal business, nobody ever does this. Nobody ever takes the time out to go and talk to 250 people in the business. Yeah, they never do it. But that's exactly what I do. I spend that first 10 days talking to as many people as I possibly can. And once the themes start to emerge, you can narrow the focus very quickly. You know that it's coming down to 3 or 4 issues, not 500. And so, but when you really start to tease that out, I find I can get to the heart of things pretty quickly. In fact, it's very common for me to become the expert on this particular issue in that 10 days.
You mentioned problem. Let's take that example. Was that one problem with sort of 5 problems underneath, or was that one problem? How do you work this?
Yeah, it quite often has lots of tentacles to it. But if you identify the one problem, and then you identify the one thing that you're going to fix it with, there's always other things to do. There's always other things to make it better, right? But what you want is a big impact quickly. And if you narrow that focus, you've only got one problem and you've got to fix it with one thing. You can do it quickly. Yeah, you can get a real impact and a real measurable difference inside a few weeks, and that's what the company's looking for.
Okay, so we're on profits. That was P. Let's go to R.
So the R is for review. Once you've identified the one thing that you're going to fix, you need to review all of the available data on that one thing in the business. And you've got to look at that in a way that allows you to put things together in unusual ways. For example, I mean, a typical manager in a business, he's looking at his numbers every day and every week and every month, and they're kind of drifting past him. And the numbers this week don't look very much different to the ones last week, and so on. But when you step back far enough and you look at a 5-year trend, you can see where things are starting to go wrong. Yeah, but nobody in the business ever does that. And if you construct it in a way, for example, you look at headcount and you look at output and you look at quality, and you put those three things together on a graph, and it tells you a story. But nobody has ever in the business, in my experience, has ever done that. But they're so involved in their own little world, they never take the time to take that step back. But once you review that data and that information that's in the business, it will always tell you a story. And it's very, very common for when you put this up in front of people and you say, well, that's what it's telling you guys. It's like you can hear pennies dropping all around the room. It's a revelation. Yeah.
I guess the concern or major thing that I was thinking of is, what if they don't have the data?
I would say that is something that you do come across from time to time. They will always have something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even the most basic business will have their sales data. They'll have their head count. They'll have their output. There's always basic data there that you can tap into. And sometimes if you don't have exactly the data that you need, you can start to construct it yourself. And even a couple of weeks worth of data is better than nothing.
Okay. No, that's a good point. So that was review.
Yeah. The next step is O, which is for opportunities. So when you've identified the problem, you've reviewed all the data, you've analyzed the themes, and you've started to understand what's going on, you then need to look at ways to fix this particular thing. This is the opportunities or options. And this is about creating an informal team within the business, because 99 times out of 100, there are lots of people in the business that have an idea of what needs to be fixed and how to fix it. They just haven't had a forum or an opportunity or a voice in the business to be able to do it. So you create that informal team and you start to do the creative process. This is things like Kaizen, it's things like mind mapping and brainstorming, but done in a facilitative way so that nothing's off limits. And even the craziest sounding solutions can quite often, with a bit of modification, actually be the answer. So when you get that creative, stuff flowing, that's a really exciting part of this process.
And that looks like a workshop, Steve, is it?
Yes.
That you facilitate?
Yeah. It can be a number of workshops, Ian, but it's typically your workshop type activity. Yeah.
Yeah. And is that something, we're talking about sort of methodologies and structure. Do you have some exercises or a bunch of questions to sort of stimulate all this conversation?
I typically have 3 questions, and it's where are we now, where are we going, and how do we get there? And if you keep it simple, I mean, people love simple. They love step by step. They love simple. If they've got to think about it too hard, they won't do it. Which is where a lot of consultants actually fall foul, because for some reason they seem to think that they've got to be the smartest guy in the room. They don't. What they have to do is to tap into the knowledge and the skills and experience that's already in the business and get the most out of that to get the best result.
Definitely, yeah. Excellent. Okay.
So the next step is F, which is for fine tune. So once you've flushed out a whole bunch of potential resolutions, you then have to narrow your focus again and pick one thing to do. Because quite often, if you try and fix something with 5 or 6 things, you don't know what's having the impact. You don't know what is actually, which is the lever that's giving you the most benefit. So my advice would be, with collaboration, with agreement, with consensus, actually narrow down your focus and say, all right, we understand where we are in the business. We've identified all these opportunities. Which one of these are we going to put into practice right now to give us the best benefit for the business? And sometimes it isn't the one that's got the most impact or the most profit opportunity or something like that. It can actually be the one that the business can accept, the one that the business is actually ready for, or there is a cultural fit for this particular fix. It's not all about the big bang. It's all about getting people behind this one thing that we're going to do because it's right for the business at this particular time.
Can I put you on the spot here and ask for an example of that?
There are any number, but if I was to say to you, I was in a double-decker bus company it was in Blackburn, quite a number of years ago, and it was fairly obvious to me that there was 500 things that needed to be fixed. But the big thing in the business was that it was absolutely drowning in WIP, in work in progress. Yeah.
Okay.
And I wanted to go all out, gung ho, and replicate a production line in the factory, and do all kinds of stuff. Bearing in mind, there were 360 people on the shop floor in this business, and they were all traditional trades: coach builders, welders, fitters, electricians. They were proud people. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They didn't want anyone coming in and de-skilling their job. Right? So I had to craft a solution with the team that made best use of those traditional skills and those proud people, because they wouldn't accept an all-out flow line where they're going to sit there every day and do the same job 100 times a day. They wouldn't do that. So I had to get, if you like, a slightly different solution, which tapped into their skills and their experience and their knowledge, and actually valued that. And it was then something which they would accept and which the business could move forward. And if I'm honest, it wasn't actually the best thing at the time, but the results were great, and it was something which the people could get behind, and they could really back it and buy in from the word go.
Yeah, culture is very important. So would you say that you made those steps, and then was that something to build on? You're not going to do it in a one shot. Maybe get those baby steps through. Is that what?
Yeah, absolutely. You can get a business from the dark track onto the light track very quickly.
Okay.
Yeah. So if they carry on down the particular road they're going, they're heading for losses and redundancies and goodness knows what. It's dark track. You can get them onto that light track very quickly. Literally within a matter of days, you can get them onto a different track where they're now heading towards the light and they're heading towards profits and growth and etc. That can happen literally within a few days. And people think, well, crikey, how can you do that? There's 500 people in this business. How can you do that? And it's all about mindset. That your change can happen literally in an instant. We were heading down here, now we're heading down here. And sometimes it's as quick and as easy as that. And once people are on that new track, they never look back. But as I mentioned previously, it has to be a good fit. If it's not, you'll be struggling, all the way.
I'm not going to jump forward. I know I've got IT and S to go here, but I don't know what they are. But in my mind, I was thinking about communication there. So is that something that's pretty important in a situation like this? So taking those double-decker operatives, for instance, is that something where you get a big communication and tell people, look, this is why we're doing it. This is where we want to get to. And
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the things that I haven't mentioned, which I should have done, and thank you for reminding me, is that between every step there is what I call a hurdle. So you can't move from step 1 to step 2 until you've cleared the hurdle. And the hurdle typically would involve consensus, involve agreement, and it would involve buy-in. The thing is that people can't buy something until you sell it. So if you're going to sell something, it means about crafting a communication in whatever is the right format and the right venue in the forum for that business so that they can buy it. So if you're going to move from problems to review, you can't move to that review stage until everyone in the business has been communicated to by the most senior person on the site, whether it be an MD or a chief executive or whatever, and they've explained why we're doing it, how we've got to the place where we are, how we've selected the particular issue, why we got there, and what we'd like going forward, which is typically their support. And in my experience, I haven't come across a situation where when the people at the top of the business are asking for that support, the people down below don't give it. They always give it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you cross that hurdle, then you can move forward.
And sorry to labour the point, but you've gone from problem to review there. Okay, you've got the buy-in. When you go from review to say opportunities,
yep.
What does that hurdle look like there?
It's actually it's a similar thing, but what you're talking about there is once you've analysed all of the data, you at that point you're starting to create informal a team or teams, and the step there is to get consensus in that team that you've now teased out all of the data. You know what the messages are, and you're now ready to move forward. Unless you've got that consensus, you can't move forward.
Okay, so it's a lot of engagement, a lot of communication.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, let's get on to I.
Okay, I is implement and test. So once you've narrowed down your focus and you've fine-tuned your opportunities into one fix, you now want to implement something. And this is where I would always recommend that you set up a pilot program. And sometimes you can't, but the vast majority of times you can. So you'd select a part of the business where you have a good chance of success. It's as self-contained as it can be, and there's a low risk to the business. So you're going to try something new. And by the way, by the time that you've got to this point and you've had consensus all the way along, you've got buy-in all the way along, it's very unusual to get to this point and have something which is risky. It is nearly always fairly logical and fairly clear what the next step ought to be. So you've got your one thing that you're going to use to fix this particular issue, and you identify a part of the business where you're going to trial it or run this pilot program, and then you implement it and you test it and make sure that actually it fits into the business and it's going to give you what you want to do.
So was that, have we just done I and T there, implement and test?
No. T.
Oh, there's a T,
yeah,
right? Okay.
There is a T. T is tracking. So once you've implemented this and you've got the thing ticking along, you have to track whatever metric it was that you were measuring in the first place, whether it's profits or whether it's turnover, or it's quality, whatever it is. You need to track that whatever you're doing is actually having an impact on that metric. And there is it's a human nature thing in here. You always come across people that want to make it look better than it is. They want to sugarcoat it. My view is never do that. Yeah, just tell it like it is. If it's good, if it's great, if it's not so great, tell it like it is. Because the eyes of the world are on you anyway. They're going to find out. Just keep it honest, keep it clean, keep it tidy, and just track it. Because there's no failure. There's only feedback. And you use that feedback to shape and roll out, which is the next step.
I'm just laughing at myself. Try telling that to a sales guy. I want your honest pipeline going forward. Well,
yeah. Is my glass half full or half empty? What kind of day am I having?
So that was tracking, and then we'll move on to the last one. We've got the S.
Yeah, the S is shape and roll out. Once you've had all that tracking information, you've had all that data and feedback, and you're pretty confident that you now can roll this out across the rest of the business, you have to take whatever you've done in that pilot area and you have to tailor it for every other area of the business. And this is when you start to get lots of engagement in lots of different departments. And because of the nature of the business, you would have to create a tailored program for each department because they're not all the same. Whether that's whether it's departments on the shop floor or whether it's departments in the offices or in the logistics or supply chain, whatever, it doesn't matter. You have to create that tailored solution using the same principles that you've used in the tracking phase, and then you need to then tailor that and then roll it out across the rest of the business.
Thinking about I love stories. Okay, and you've mentioned that double decker one, you mentioned the cable one. People love to learn through stories. It works really well. Is that the way this book's written, Steve?
It is, and it's one of the things that I always said to myself: if ever I'm going to write a book, it's about this subject, because it's something which I'm passionate about, as you can probably tell. But if I was ever going to write a book, it wasn't going to be a dry textbook. It was always going to be a book of stories. And so what I've done, I've created lots of characters that they're strong characters, and there's a really good storyline here. It's written in a very similar way to The Goal by Eli Goldratt, which I think is a classic business book about the theory of constraints. But I mean, if you were to read about that subject matter as just the theory of constraints, I mean, it would put you to sleep pretty quickly. But because it's written in an engaging and a novel way, it's easy to read. And I wanted to do this book in the same way. And it was very, very funny. At the book launch last week, I made a comment which got the room stirring. I said, all of the characters in this book are based on people that I've met. Right? No names, no pack drill. And some of them might actually be in this room. And they're, what? So, and to be fair, there were, but I wasn't going to tell them that. It was just it's my little game. But all of the people all the characters in this book, albeit they've got different names and they've got perhaps in different positions, but all of the characters in this book are based on people I've met.
And you're protecting the innocent by changing the names.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yes, like a true superhero would.
Of course.
So, are we talking about this book? Is it, who's it focused at? Is it, is it manufacturing, engineering companies, or can this be just across the board?
That's a great question, Ian. I've had these kind of conversations about the methodology that I use with people in lots of different industries, and without exception, they've all said, I could apply that exactly, the way that you do it, but in my industry. So, I've taught this to people in health, in insurance, in retail, in banking, and it applies virtually anywhere. There are two basic considerations here. In a business that has people and has a process of some kind, you can apply this. Yeah. It doesn't matter if the outcome is a service or whether it's a financial instrument. It doesn't matter. As long as you have people and you have a process, you can use this to make your business better. And all I would say to people out there that are going to be listening to this, it doesn't matter if you don't want to be a consultant, you don't want to be an interim, even if you're working in a business, but you want to learn these skills, then this is something that will definitely help you. It doesn't matter where you are in the business, you can apply these skills and make you make yourself stand out very, very quickly and positively for all the right reasons.
Excellent. Well, you very kindly offered our listeners a competition to win this book. We've got a couple of books there, and we'll probably do what we usually do. We'll run it through Twitter in terms of sort of retweeting the tweet, and we'll select someone to win. But I know you've also got, is it a masterclass or?
Yeah, we've got a live seminar coming up on the 20th of May. It's at the Hardwick Hall Hotel in Sedgefield in County Durham, which is where I'm from. And it's going through the 7 steps in fine detail, one by one. We're recording the event, so there will be a video product coming out after the event's been done. But it's taking every step and going through it in real detail, understanding the skills involved, understanding the hurdles involved, understanding the trigger mechanisms that allow you to go from one thing to the next thing, etc. And it's a proper deep dive into all of these steps. And I think it's going to be a great day.
Yeah, it sounds really good. Excellent stuff. And that's on the 20th of May. Well, what we'll do, Steve, we'll put some links up in the show notes and people can learn more. But thanks very much for coming to see us today. Really good. Great knowledge there. And thanks again for the competition, which we'll run where someone could win the book.
Fantastic. It's been a delight, Ian, so thank you for having me.
Thank you very much to Steve there. I hope you found that of interest. I was speaking with Steve after recording, and he mentioned that his clients find that profit system really simple to understand. And, I totally got that because I love working with methodologies and exercises because it just provides focus, doesn't it? You're all on the same page and you're all, going off on crazy tangents. So if you'd like to learn more about 90 Days to Profit, you can head over to industryangel.com and you'll find links there. And as you heard, Steve's kindly offered a competition for 2 of our listeners to win the book. You can retweet the pinned post on Industry Angel Twitter feed. You can visit the Facebook page. You could send me an email, host@industryangel.com. All the links will be on the website, so best of luck. I'm sure you'll score the nice little message in there for you as well. A little bit holiday reading. Let me know if you use any particular exercises or methodologies in your role. I'd love to hear from you, as you know. So, until next time, I'm Ian Farrer. This is the Industry Angel, and thanks for listening.